All right, buckle up and welcome to Hannity. In case there was any doubt in your mind, any doubt whatsoever, well, tonight, full confirmation that, yes, the Democratic presidential nominee Kamala Harris is the single most radical, extreme, and downright dangerous far-left politician ever coronated by the Democratic Party. Now, she just tapped Minnesota Governor Tim Walz, the single most radical far-left governor in the United States, to be her running mate. Make no mistake, Harris and Walz, they're political soulmates. Walz is the Bernie Sanders of Democratic governors. He has extreme positions on everything. He was a champion of woke politics. We'll go into great detail. He has a track record of scandal, dishonesty, failure. He has deep, decades-long ties to China. And as much as he loves calling J.D. Vance weird, he's pretty weird. It appears that Walz was throwing stones at a very glass house. So tonight we are going to do what the state-run media mob will not do. We are going to vet the extremely weird, radical Tim Walz in detail. Now, coming up, Donald Trump's running mate, Senator J.D. Vance of Ohio, will join us. Florida Governor Ron DeSantis will join us. And then later, Senator Ted Cruz of Texas will be here. But let us begin with Governor Walz's crowning achievement, allowing entire neighborhoods and a police precinct in his own state to be burned straight to the ground during the riots in the summer of 2020. And he sat by and he did nothing, absolutely nothing, for days and days. J.D. Vance, he pointed this out today. Harris and Walz make an interesting duo for all the wrong reasons. Take a look.
To her credit, Kamala Harris and Tim Walz do make an interesting team, because if we remember the rioting in the summer of 2020, Tim Walz was the guy who let rioters burn down Minneapolis, and then Kamala Harris was the one who bailed the rioters out of jail. So there's an interesting team in that sense.
Great point. On the first night of the violent riots, Tim Walz, he did nothing. On the second night of the riots, the violent riots, what did he do? Nothing. On the third night, after a Target was ransacked, a police precinct was burned to the ground, Tim Walz did nothing. The left-wing mayor of Minneapolis was begging Governor Walz to send in the National Guard. Walz refused. It wasn't until night 5 that the governor finally decided to send in the Guard and restore order, but by then, it was too late. Entire neighborhoods were burned to the ground. Blocks and blocks of businesses were totally looted. 3 Americans were dead. Governor Walz didn't care. He said that the people of Minnesota deserve this violence because of their lack of equity and inclusion. Can't make it up. You really can't. Take a look.
We saw large, peaceful protests focusing on the systemic changes that get to the heart of why we're in this situation. And when I say we, Minneapolis, St. Paul, the state of Minnesota, nationally, and as we've seen over the last 24 hours, internationally. A society that does not put equity and inclusion at the center of it is certainly going to eventually come to the places where we're at.
Oh, and it gets much worse from here. The First Lady of Minnesota, Gwen Walz, well, she basked in the riots, telling local media that she actually opened the windows in her home. Why? To smell the burning tires so that she could breathe in the historic moment. She went on to express her deep admiration for violent criminals, saying that they deserve unlimited chances to commit more crimes. Take a look.
I think it takes a lot of imagination and courage to move away from a system that punishes people and sets people up for failure, to a system that is restorative, right? That is equitable, that is healing. How many chances do you get? My answer to that is as many chances as you need, which doesn't really please those law and order people.
Vandalism, looting, pelting cops with bricks, rocks, bottles, Molotov cocktails, burning down police precincts, ransacking businesses, many chances as you want. Apparently, Kamala Harris agrees, which is why she long promoted that Minnesota bail fund, which raised $40+ million that helped even the most violent criminals get out of jail and live among the population and commit more heinous crimes. Governor Walz even appointed employees from that very same bail fund to the state's, get this, sentencing commission. And we are just beginning. Both Walz and Harris also called for funds to be directed away from the police. In other words, defund, dismantle, reimagine the police. All of this at a time when unrest was wreaking havoc in America's major cities, at the time where 574 riots took place. Where's Liz Cheney when you need her? Where you had dozens of dead Americans, you had billions in property damage, thousands of injured cops, bricks, rocks, bottles, Molotov cocktails. Mostly peaceful? I don't think so. Anyway, Walz actually set up a state hotline encouraging the people of Minnesota to snitch on their neighbors if they weren't following his insane, and they were insane, COVID restrictions. Walz was a big fan of mandates and huge lockdowns. He has absolutely no regrets about preventing kids from going to class or wrecking small businesses. And, of course, rioters were not even required to follow his lockdown orders and COVID mandates. You could riot away. It's mostly peaceful as the city burns. By the way, crime is now spiking in Minnesota. Look at that. Above the national average for the first time in modern American history. So together, you have Kamala Harris and Tim Walz. They have turned Minnesota into a hellhole in the name of equity and COVID safety. And by the way, Governor Walz also led the effort to change the Minnesota state flag. Why? Because he thought the old flag using the official state seal was racist. Take a look.
All right, ready. Whoa, wait a minute. There, that's better.
Now, if Tim Walz is so offended by his own state's flag, chances are that he probably thinks most of our national monument are racist, and he even commiserated with the rioters. Remember, they toppled the Christopher Columbus statue and did nothing to stop their vandalism? God help the Jefferson Memorial or Washington Monument if this guy ever gets elected. Now, of course, there is one thing that doesn't offend Tim Walz: illegal immigration. Because he believes and he thinks unlimited illegal immigration is wonderful for our country. No vetting, come one, come all, no borders, no walls, no vetting whatsoever. In fact, Walz mocked border security. He even told fake news CNN he wanted to invest in a ladder factory to help thwart Donald Trump's border wall. Wow, brilliant idea. Take a look.
He's not going to do anything. He talks about this wall. I always say, let me know how high it is. If it's 25 feet, then I'll invest in the 30-foot ladder factory. That's not how you stop this.
Yeah, let's give a ladder to people with terror ties, the drug cartels and criminals, you know, unvetted into the country, those people that are not coming here for good reasons. Walz has also worked to provide a comfortable life for illegal immigrants with your money. He signed off on a bill granting taxpayer-funded tuition for illegal immigrants. He expanded access to the state's public health care system to cover illegal aliens. I know Kamala doesn't like that word. And he signed a bill granting driver's licenses to illegal immigrants or aliens. Needless to say, Walz doesn't want anyone deported. He's also a big believer in sanctuary cities and sanctuary states. Of course, take a look.
Minnesota be a sanctuary state?
If the definition of that is that the federal government enforces immigration law and local law enforcement enforces local law, then yes.
Should cities be allowed to be sanctuary cities?
Yes, local control.
Yes, Tim Walz is pro-illegal immigration. He's pro-criminal, he's pro-riot, he's pro-looting, he's pro-abortion up to the last minute. But the radical position, they don't stop there. Just like Kamala Harris, Tim Walz also supports universal health care. Just like Kamala, well, guess what? He also loves to raise taxes, hiking them multiple times as governor. And just like Kamala, well, weird Tim Walz also supports abortion up to the very moment of birth. Like Kamala, he also wants to phase out fossil fuels, is against fracking, signed a mandate that requires his state to stop using oil and gas in the next few years. He also attacked rural areas in America as mostly rocks and cows and it gets worse. Flanked by young children, get this. Walz signed a bill guaranteeing life-altering transgender medical procedures for children, like gender reassignment surgery, to any minor in Minnesota, regardless of parental consent. In his state, parents, you have no rights. In fact, legal experts believe the bill also enables the state of Minnesota to take custody of a child who is denied so-called gender-affirming care. Now, Walz has developed a new nickname on X. They're calling him tonight Tampon Tim. All right. Now, sounds to me like that might be the kind of name that catches on, that maybe begins to go viral. I've seen a lot of tweets about it, a lot of X posts about it. Anyway, why did this happen? After forcing state schools and other public bathrooms to stock tampons and other menstrual products in boys' bathrooms. Ultimately, like Kamala Harris, Walz has supported every far-left position known to man. They both seem to use AOC and Congresswoman Omar and other members of the squad as their guiding light. He's even praised Omar in spite of well-documented anti-Semitism. Walz has nothing but kind words for socialism. Once compared it to simply just being nice and neighborly, taking your money and giving it to other people, and they're in power the whole time. Take a look.
We can get out there, reach out, make the case. And for one thing, don't ever shy away from our progressive values. One person's socialism is another person's neighborliness. Just do the damn work.
White dudes for Harris. Okay, you see, Tim Walz is your friendly neighborhood radical socialist coming to Washington to remake America unless you stop him. Unburdened, by the way, by what has been. In fact, allow me to pause for the moment to read a glowing endorsement from the Democratic Socialists of America. Quote, Harris choosing Walz as a running mate has shown the world that the DSA and our allies on the left are a force that cannot be ignored. Oh, no, they're not ignored. They're embraced. When America's openly devout socialists are elated, it's probably not a good sign. But according to Nancy Pelosi, Walz isn't on the left one bit. A child trans advocate who supports sanctuary cities, defunding the police, praising socialism, according to Nancy, is right down the middle. Take a look.
Tim Walz, I know very well. He served in the House. To characterize him as left is so unreal. It's just not what the question. He's right down the middle. He's a heartland of America Democrat.
That's it, really? We're supposed to believe that? Even liberal Joe, to his credit, he was having a hard time buying that lie. She's delusional. Again, Tim Walz is the Bernie Sanders of American governors. In fact, he might actually be further to the left of Bernie, like Kamala Harris is further to the left of Bernie. And like Bernie, Walz honeymoon in a communist country. Can't make that up either. That's right. Walz and Gwen Walz decided to spend their honeymoon in the People's Republic of China. Oh, that's my first choice. Now, before their honeymoon in the communist wasteland, Walz and his wife spent a significant amount of time as teachers in China. Walz told the local paper, quote, going there was one of the best things I've ever done. Maybe he wants to go back and stay permanently. And while Walz loved his time in China, he wasn't so keen on deploying to Iraq as a member of the National Guard. Now, according to a report in the New York Post, veterans accused Walz, a number of them, of embellishing his entire military career, and then, when the moment of truth came, abandoning his battalion after he, quote, slithered out the door before his Iraq deployment. In other words, after he was told that you're going to Iraq. Worse, Walz went on to disparage members of the National Guard in public. Take a look.
I don't think the mayor knew what he was asking for. He wanted the National Guard, and what does that mean? I think to the mayor, yes, I think it's a perception. I'm certainly not questioning that. I think the mayor said, I request the National Guard. Whew, I'm out. This is great. We're going to have massively trained troops. No, you're going to have 19-year-olds who are cooks in some cases. And what are we going to do and how are we going to use them?
19-year-olds that are cooks. Anyway, another scandal now haunting Walz. Oh, he was arrested for DUI in 1995. Walz was pulled over after going nearly 100 miles an hour in a 55-mile-per-hour zone, reportedly reeked of alcohol. Somehow, was able to plead down to a reckless driving charge and move on with his life. Now, let's be clear. Woke, entitled, far-left Tim Walz represents everything that is wrong with today's modern, radical, extreme, dangerous Democratic Party. And that's exactly why he was picked over somebody like Pennsylvania Governor Josh Shapiro. Now, take a look at this clip from even CNN's Van Jones in a very honest moment. Listen to this closely.
But you also have anti-Semitism that has gotten marbled into this party. You can be for the Palestinians without being an anti-Jewish bigot, but there are some anti-Jewish bigots out there. And there's some disquiet now, and there has to be. How much of what just happened is caving into some of these darker parts in the party?
Some of these darker parts of the party, admitting that radical anti-Semites, pro-Hamas Semites are in his party. There is a horrible rot now festering inside of the Democratic radical left Socialist Party, and it's intertwined with socialism, anti-Semitism, a contempt for our country, and the people who share those hateful beliefs. They all love Tim Walz. He's their guy. And they're going to head to the polls and vote for Kamala. And if they succeed, these two political soulmates will try their best to reimagine the U.S. into something that will be completely and utterly unrecognizable. All right, we have a lot more coming up on Kamala's brand new running mate as our vetting continues tonight. Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.